The story of us and you steps you into a treasure trove of memories now through August 31st. Tickets and information at themosh.org. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler. On today's First Coast Connect, how should the community respond to a viral video of police punching a motorist? We discuss a series of guided conversations on the coded language of policing and justice. Then, celebrating the 105th anniversary of women's right to vote, 3 activists share plans for a local celebration of the milestone. And an unlikely hideaway in a most public place. We preview tonight's screening of Secret Mall Apartment here at WJCT, the true story of 8 friends who lived for years inside a Rhode Island mall. Join the conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also email First Coast Connect at WJCT.org or tag us on social media. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The Trump administration has announced plans to cancel more research to develop mRNA vaccines. NPR's Rob Stein explains.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says the federal government is canceling about $500 million in mRNA vaccine research. Kennedy had already canceled more than $700 million in contracts to develop an mRNA vaccine to protect the country against the next pandemic. Kennedy questions the safety and effectiveness of mRNA vaccines. Most experts say mRNA vaccines are very safe and effective. Kennedy says the administration is focusing on a different technology that he says mimics natural immunity. Most experts consider that to be outdated technology. Rob Stein, NPR News.
Texas Democratic lawmakers remain out of their state. It's their effort to block a GOP effort to redraw congressional districts in Texas. This could help Republicans gain 5 more seats in the U.S. Congress. Texas GOP officials warn they'll take legal action to kick the Democrats out of office unless they come back. President Trump has announced he's forming a security task force for the 2028 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles. From LAist, Libby Rainey reports.
President Trump signed an executive order mobilizing federal agencies to prepare for the historic event.
We'll do anything necessary to keep the Olympics safe, including using our National Guard or military.
The move comes in a time of extraordinary tension between Trump and the city of Los Angeles. Local officials have pushed back against the presence of masked immigration agents and the National Guard on the streets of LA this summer. The U.S. Secret Service is the leading security agency for the Games. That agency is under the Department of Homeland Security. The Republican tax and spending bill signed into law last month includes $1 billion for security and other costs related to the Olympic Games. For NPR News, I'm Libby Rainey in Los Angeles.
Oklahoma's Attorney General has joined the Departments of Homeland Security and Justice to sue to stop in-state tuition for Oklahoma students without legal immigration status. From member station KOSU, Lionel Ramos reports.
In their complaint, the agencies note that federal law prohibits students who are in the U.S. illegally from getting in-state college tuition that's denied to out-of-state students who are U.S. citizens. Oklahoma statutes allow for migrants without legal status to enroll and pay in-state tuition, as long as they can show proof that they've applied for permanent residency. But court documents show that Oklahoma's Attorney General Gettner Drummond agrees with the plaintiffs that federal law preempts state statutes in this matter. According to the complaint, the goal is to end state educational support for such migrants. Quote, no exceptions. For NPR News, I'm Lionel Ramos in Oklahoma City.
You're listening to NPR News.
Good morning. You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. I'm Stephen Ponson. It is now 9:04. Days before the start of the new school year, the Duval County School Board has approved new lunch prices for students at 37 schools. School lunches will cost $4 for elementary students and $4.25 for secondary students after the school board approved the new prices last night. Low-income families whose children attend the 37 schools can still apply for free or reduced price meals, and students whose families receive assistance from programs like SNAP will automatically be registered. The rest of Duval's traditional public schools, about 75% of them, will continue to offer lunch at no cost. Breakfast is free for all students at all schools. This change is the result of expired COVID-era federal funding that allowed the district to serve free lunches to all students for several years. See a list of the 37 schools affected by this change at jaxtoday.org. Strong storms are in the forecast for inland areas of northeast Florida today. Scattered showers are expected to form first during the middle of the day and into the early afternoon hours around the Highway 301 corridor. Then rain coverage increases throughout the afternoon, and we could even see some severe storms with the rain this afternoon. Highs expected to reach the low to mid 90s for inland areas, lower 90s out at the beaches. Tonight, showers should come to an end after about 10 or so for inland areas. Lows will drop down into the low to mid 70s inland, upper 70s along the coast.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Lodestar Foundation, inspired by the principle that helping someone else less fortunate is a path to a happier, healthier, and more meaningful life. Learn more at lodestarfoundation.org.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, following weeks of controversy over a video showing an officer punching a black motorist, a series of community conversations gets underway tomorrow night. We'll tell you what's on the table and how you can participate. Later, the women celebrating the women behind a woman's right to vote. We preview an event marking the 105th anniversary of women's suffrage. But first, a series of conversations prompted by a controversial arrest tackles concerns about police violence and a broken trust with some in the Black community. Here to talk about it, I'm joined by Dr. Audrieanna Burgin, CEO of the racial healing and equity nonprofit 90 Forward. Good morning, Dr. Burgin.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
We're also joined by the group's Director of Equity, ReGina Newkirk. Good morning.
Good morning.
And Melinda Patterson, a criminal defense attorney based here in Jacksonville. Good morning.
Good morning.
Dr. Burgin, I guess I want to start with how 90 Forward initially absorbed the news of this arrest organizationally, and then kind of at what point you decided you wanted to have some conversations with the community.
Yeah. Well, if you know anything about 90 Forward, conversations is what we do, courageous conversations. As we absorbed it, first personally, and then as an organization, we found the incident troubling, disheartening. We understood and began to hear initially, like right away, the frustrations from the community. And then we huddled up over a series of conversations ourselves and, decided what is our response. And our response is always power through unity and focusing on the bigger policy issues and how we really drive change forward. And it was like, what do we need in this moment? In this moment, we need to lift the voice of the community and understand what's really happening. This is not an isolated incident. And as we started to look at the policy changes we wanted to make, that became more than just one event, more than just one conversation, and it began our Justice series. So I'll start with that, and I'll pass it to my Director of Equity because I know she is burning to tap in. Yes, ReGina, I'll pass it to her.
Well, these conversations are so important, and they're so incredibly nuanced. So, for instance, our conversation tomorrow night really is highlighting a lot of the coded language that is around these types of arrests, these types of excessive use of force. How do we break that apart? How do we understand what's going on? And again, to Dr. Burgin's point, how do we address the policy issues that are behind it? When we have a police force that is legally allowed to police themselves, and we have a governor who has stated that he wants to make Florida the friendliest state to police in the nation. What exactly does that mean, and what kinds of policies are put forth that allow this type of behavior to continue?
I want to ask you, when you talk about the coded language that is used to describe or to discuss some of these events, can you break down a little bit what you mean by that?
And so now you're going to take away some of the event for tomorrow night. But for example, one of the things that we've heard so often with Mr. McNeil's assault, as well as others, he should have just complied. And there's a lot behind that statement, because what it's saying is that it's justifiable behavior if you don't comply, and that a person who is fearful, who is nervous, who is unsure of what's happening is expected to have exceptional, perfect behavior in order to get what we would consider to just be fair treatment.
Mm.
And I don't think that people think about that phrase in that way. But when you say he should have just complied, it really does say, but because he didn't comply, he is deserving of abuse. And that's not the society that we really want to live in.
Melinda, I wonder if you can talk a little bit about some of the clients that you work with and the individuals. I mean, just yesterday you were showing me some dramatic video of one of your clients in a very intense takedown. A man standing in front of his house who was unarmed and just standing there. His case was ultimately dropped because of the work that you did on it, but he spent 136 days in jail and endured this very violent arrest. Can you talk about, just in your criminal practice, how often you see incidents where people who are kind of not resisting or are apparently complying are being treated in a way that you find objectionable?
I would say it's very consistent. In maybe 10 cases that I look at over a month, and it obviously, it goes to a particular demographic when we start looking at these issues as well. The younger Black male demographic is a larger target for this. Unfortunately, the majority of the people that we see come through the criminal justice system are younger Black males. One of the reports that we were looking at yesterday were the numbers from last year, the response to resistance reports. 56.6% were men or people under the age of 35. There's maybe 5 to 6 of the 10 I look at in a month where there's an overuse of force. The video we looked at yesterday, the man was in compliance. That did not stop 6 officers from piling on top of him, pulling hair, punching in the face. This is not uncommon in Jacksonville. One of the points that were made repeatedly after the video with McNeil came out was that he never put in a complaint. He never filed anything with JSO. People who have that perspective have never had the issue or known anyone to be targeted by JSO. Once you become a target for, and I'm not saying this in any way as a generalized, this is all police officers, this is all of JSO, it's not. But we do have problematic units within JSO. And these units, they're not normal patrol officers that are driving around issuing tickets. These particular units are usually very specific. They have a specific job they're supposed to be doing, whether it's in a certain area, targeting certain groups. And once you become a person that's on their radar, once you become a target, every day of your life, you're having to watch over your back. It's like being in a war zone. This is not warranted a lot of the time. I had a juvenile case recently. I'm not going to say his name. 16 years old and was targeted by the gang unit on the west side. He's not on the gang registry, only recently moved to Jacksonville. The report verbatim states that they see him go into the store, they call up other gang unit, they start circling the area where the kid and his 2 friends are walking back home. They end up pulling up next to them on the sidewalk because of a pedestrian infraction, because of the way he crossed the street. The kids take off running because here's these, adult men jumping out of a van coming at them. They're walking home from the store. Now we're resisting arrest because we're terrified of what's happening. Anyone would be terrified of that. One of the juveniles that I ended up representing, they chase him to where there's like one of the big drainage ditch type areas. He goes running in there. He eventually stops. And you see all this on the body cam. He stops, puts his hands up. He says, okay, I'm done. I'm not resisting. The officer still proceeds to pick him up by the back of his shirt, slam him down into the tree roots that are coming out of the ground head first. Slams him down. How he didn't crack his skull, get a concussion, I have no idea. And then another officer comes running up, knees him in the head. This is all to gain compliance with someone who just said, I'm complying. This is a 16-year-old. This is consistently happening here. Do you imagine that he's going to go file a complaint for this to now happen again when he's walking down the sidewalk and gets attacked? That's not an option.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about a series of community conversations and ongoing community reaction to a controversial traffic stop and the resulting viral video. You can join our conversation on air by calling 904-549-2937. You can email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can reach out on social media. And just a note, today we are discussing community reaction to this controversial video, but we are covering this story from all sides. And if you'd like to hear a different perspective, you can watch or listen to our July 22nd show, which featured the views of 3 current and former law enforcement officers, including the sheriff. I do want to say, the sheriff would say, Dr. Burgin, that this is an infrequent occurrence. And some of that he would base on numbers. The response to resistance report that Melinda Patterson was referencing, that's published each year by the sheriff's office. It's put on their website. It's made available to the public so people can themselves look at how often incidents like this are happening. Out of 768,000 calls for service in 2024, fewer than 1% resulted in a response to resistance, basically anything that involved a weapon or a takedown or a use of force. That I think would in some ways validate the sheriff's position that this is not happening all that often, 1% of the time. Do figures like that give you any pause in your concern about, the rate or the need for pushback when an incident like this does happen?
Honestly, no. I've born and raised in Jacksonville. I have my lived experience. We have the lived experience of Black and brown people all over this city, all over this county, all over this nation. I do love that they released that data. We believe at 904, and I believe personally as a data scientist and economist that the most powerful community is an informed, educated, aware, community. But there are statistics that show that there are issues. There are statistics and data that shows there are problems, deep, long-running systemic issues that we need to address as a community. And our goal is, we're for public safety. We want the police to go home safe, and we want the community to go home safe. We want everybody to go home safe. But there's a lack of trust and something is broken in that relationship. And that's more so that we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a note from Paul on Facebook saying he wants First Coast Connect and the national media to acknowledge and correct that it was not a punch. He says, you slow down the video. At best, it was a slap. And that the continued use of punch to describe it is lazy journalism. So, it is important it was a flat hand that hit the side of his face that came through the window after the police broke the window. And, generally has been described as a punch. It's certainly delivered, with some force, ReGina. But I want to ask you, again, about that statistic that we discussed. How does that compare to perceptions, the people that you talk to in the community?
Well, I think there are a lot of things that have to be broken apart in this. So, for instance, what rises to the level of resisting arrest and being reported by the police officers. I even question if there had not been a video, would this particular incident have risen to that. And we cannot be in a situation where videos are our accountability factor. George Floyd got attention because there was a video. Mr. McNeil is getting attention because there is a video. The majority of the time when we have encounters with police officers, there isn't a video. And my concern and our concern is when we also look at civilian complaints, the unbelievably low number of those that are upheld says to me there is a problem, particularly when the police officers are the ones who are policing themselves. And so again, as Dr. Burgin said, we really want to have a community where our police officers are safe, but where our community is safe. And right now, we have a lot of people in our community who don't feel safe. And how do we get the two together to talk about the systems and the policies that allow for more accountability, but still protect our police officers and allow them to police in a safe, caring fashion that is the best for the community?
We've got a call from Tom on the west side. Good morning, Tom. Go ahead.
Good morning. One of the things I found particularly disturbing about the McNeil case is the frequent reference to compliance hits or slaps. And I just don't think that the police should ever be initiating violence with a citizen. I mean, whatever happened to the motto of protect and serve? It just seems wrong. It seems like every citizen is entitled to respect and fair treatment.
Thank you, Tom. We also have a call from Curtis on the north side. Good morning, Curtis. Go ahead.
Good morning, my sisters. Everyone, how y'all doing? And I would like to ask Chief T.K. Waters, where do the police rights start and end as far as brute force? The attorney said the video showed the young man stopped running, said, "I'm complying," had his hands up, and the police officer used force, body slammed him into the roots and everything, and then another one came and pounced on his head. When are they authorized to act out of their own personal feelings? What, they are mad because the young man made them run after them? Or like the man with the Neil? What, the officer so mad that he had to break the window that he felt like he had the right to hit him in the face? And then if you see the video, he hit him again. And then the other officers pounced on this young man. What authority do they have to do that? That's what I want to ask the sheriff. But I can never get to him. I done went to several things he have had. You can never talk to him. Never. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Curtis. I want to ask you about that, Melinda, because obviously by policy and by statute, officers have a great deal of freedom to escalate if someone is resisting. And so they're allowed by statute and policy to sort of take it to the next level if someone doesn't comply. And not complying can be a simple act of kind of not, of stiffening your body, they might say, or refusing to put your hands behind your back. If someone, though, does kind of end their resistance in the case of this teen, is there a point at which they are obligated to pull back from that escalation?
Excuse me. By their own policy, yes. They are, especially when we're talking a situation like McNeil where we have passive resistance, not active resistance. Their own policy says that they have a duty to try to de-escalate the situation before any less than lethal force is used. I've seen it time and time again in my personal cases. We all saw it on the video. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, having watched the body cams, he asked for a sergeant. There was a sergeant on the way that was en route. So why this had to take place prior to the sergeant getting there when McNeil was not a flight risk, he was not leaving, he was not a danger to himself, he was not a danger to the officers, the circumstances had not changed to where you needed to bust the window and strike him in the face prior to a sergeant being there.
We've got a call from Tim in Orange Park. Just briefly, Tim, go ahead. Thanks.
Yes, I just want to make an observation. I got pulled over multiple times on Blendy Boulevard in Orange Park, but each and every time the police pulled me over, they used different reasons for pulling me over, and twice they used the issue of, those are really nice tires. Where did you get those tires? What? It was a 1992 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham that I ended up selling because I got tired of getting pulled over. And another thing, as far as the punch goes, the palm of the hand, I teach martial arts. I teach students, how to break concrete with the palm of their hand. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. Dr. Burgin, I'm curious, in these conversations that you've scheduled to talk about this, who is it intended for? Is it intended for the speakers, the people that are, coming to these events because they want to express concerns or just an opinion about them? Or are they for listeners that you're hoping to reach someone to kind of hear what's being said at these conversations?
Yeah, I would say it's for me, my goal is the duality of both. So we have some really informed speakers coming on Thursday night's conversation. I'll try to run through them all if I can remember, but ReGina will back me up. We have Pastor McKee from the Oak, who is rooted in the heart of Jacksonville, doing some amazing work. We have Representative Angie Nixon, and I am drawing a blank now. I almost called you Dr. ReGina. I think something is coming. But ReGina is leading the conversation. And who were the other two speakers?
So we have Nicole from the Tributary, who's coming talking about the media perspective, as
The
well
reporter
as,
there, Nicole Manna, yeah.
yes, as well as Kim Varner, who is a retired person, a retired detective from JSO. We want to have a lot of perspectives in this, as well as an understanding of some of the foundational issues. But I think it's an opportunity for us to all really think and reflect about very casual things that are said that oftentimes underline or support behavior that we actually don't intend to support. So we really want to think about the meaning behind things, why people might react a certain way, and really challenge some thinking. So I agree, it's the duality of both. We really believe in educational experiences where people have an opportunity to hear from others, learn, and understand in a deeper way.
When it comes to the issue of compliance, as you've said, there are a number of people whose reaction to this video of William McNeil has been, if he had just done what the officer said, and complied with the commands, none of this would have happened. And I'm curious, especially for the work that you do, Melinda, there seems to be this impression that people have who haven't been through the system, that there's sort of an opportunity to shake it all out and figure it out. And, if you just comply, at some point, you'll be able to tell your side of the story and everything will be okay. And I wonder if you can just sort of comment on, if that's the case, how it really does work for people if they comply and don't and what happens next.
So especially in a context like with McNeil, where we had and I know it's debatable, but what I consider to be an illegal traffic stop, and then
Illegal because you don't think that the lights not being on was a valid reason to stop him.
Correct. I don't think the officer was in execution of illegal duty
Okay.
when he was doing the stop. But this perspective that you can be arrested, you can go to jail, you can deal with it later. When you go to jail, within 24 hours, you're going to first appearance before a judge. One of three things are going to happen at first appearance. You're either going to plead guilty, so you can get out and you can go home. First appearance is the most likely time that they will offer you time served and send you on your way, if it's a misdemeanor. The second option is that you plead not guilty and you post a bond. Duval County is notorious through the state of Florida for having some of the highest bonds that are unaffordable by the majority of our citizens. And you come out, wait till your next court date, try to hire a lawyer if you can. And the third option is that you plead not guilty, you assert your rights, you don't have the money to bond out, and you sit in jail. You sit in jail for a month until your next court date, and it will probably be right around that month period before someone even looks at your case. So you're probably going to sit for another month after that before there's any disposition. So when you think about, especially for an adult with responsibilities, what happens to your life while you're sitting in jail for a month, you lose your job, you lose your home. A lot of people lose their kids. The system as a whole does not take into account the collateral consequences of someone going to jail just to comply. You should not have to lose your livelihood in order to not be assaulted.
Is first appearance court not an appropriate time to say, hey, this was not a legal traffic stop, or I shouldn't have been, treated this way. I wasn't violating the law.
If an inmate were to try to bring this proposition during first appearance calendar, when there's probably anywhere from 50 to 70 cases that have to be heard in a 2-hour time span, the judge is most likely going to direct them to please not talk about their case. They don't want them to say something that will incriminate them, and to speak with the public defender at a later point. There is really no opportunity for someone to assert these defenses at first appearance.
Okay. One of the segments that you are planning, in addition to the one that's is tomorrow night, is one that's focused on ICE practices in Florida right now and kind of the reality on the ground. I'm curious about the way that one is structured, because unlike the one that's tomorrow at the Jessie, and then the other two, which are also held, I think they're all at 6:00, but the other three are at the Jessie Downtown. This one is Zoom only. Can you explain why?
Yeah, that one supports informing our community and conversation, surrounding ICE. And, we know we want to make sure we're protecting the community that has entrusted us, So, not intaking a lot of their information and making sure it's on Zoom. We want to make sure that we are supporting the solutions and not flaring the problem. Yeah.
And I mean, you would actually have concerns, ReGina, that somebody could be putting their liberty at risk if they were to be there in person or to make their names known.
There have been some incidences where that has happened, so we want to make sure that we're taking safeguards against that. We want people to, again, participate in our events and learn. We don't want people to enter in a state of fear. So having a webinar where you don't even know who's in attendance, people being able to share stories with some secrecy if needed, that provides comfort for them, but it is a layer of protection that we want to provide. And it really is a conversation for everyone. So I want to make sure that we are clear on that. While we certainly hope that we will have some people, some Latino residents to attend, we also want to have allies in this conversation and for everyone to really understand the impact of a lot of the behaviors and policies that have been put into place recently, what that's doing to actual people.
Yeah.
We've got a call from Hank on the north side. Good morning, Hank. Go ahead.
Good morning. How you doing?
Very well.
Good. I got a quick question. Why is it being thrown out the window that when the man was first stopped, he was asked to roll down his window and to exit the car? I don't know how many times, even though he wasn't violent, but yet he refused the commands of the police officer. I believe if he would have complied, he probably would have lost his car because he was driving under a suspended license. But I don't believe he would have been arrested if he would have just complied. But I think his hidden fear, he would have lost that car because he was driving under a suspended license, and he was warned about that a period of times, according to the information they saw on the computer. So what y'all think of that?
It's a good question, and I'll ask you, Melinda. I mean, you have two children of color. I don't know that they're driving age yet, but I mean, can you talk about that? What obligation didn't he have to comply with an officer's order?
So I think when we have this conversation about the compliance aspect, I think a lot of people are skipping past the part of this whole situation where he did in fact comply. The officer initiated the lights. He stopped. He opened the door. He communicated with the officer. I can't sit here and say what caused him to close the door. I was not there. I'm not him. So I can't speak to that. It could have been fear. It could have been concern about the suspended license. I don't personally know that, but nobody is actually acknowledging the fact that he did comply. One thing I see quite frequently in my cases is a fleeing and eluding charge. People just take off. go 100 miles an hour trying to get away. And I'll say now it doesn't usually end well. But McNeil did comply with the traffic stop initially. He started recording about the same time that he closed the door, which to me indicates that that's when the fear started to mount with the situation. My own children, who are biracial, society would consider to be Black men, are 16 and 19. So they are both driving now. I have had to have the talk with my children about how to interact with police and how to handle a traffic stop. And it is a very kind of heartbreaking conversation to have because you want your children to, respect authority. You want them to respect police and go to police if they were ever in need or in danger. But then there's this other side of this where you also have to acknowledge the situation that you're in and the inherent danger between you being an African-American male and having a traffic stop with the police. My 16-year-old just recently had his first traffic stop. It went well. This was in Clay County. And he immediately FaceTimed me as soon as the lights came on. He was panicked. He was terrified, but he did follow instructions, hands on the steering wheel, 10 and 2, don't reach for anything. Before he got his license, he's asking the cop, can I move? And while I'm glad that this is instilled in him and will keep him from being a statistic or somebody in McNeil's position, it's also very disheartening to know that your children don't have their constitutional rights in place that they should to be free from unlawful search and seizure. In addition to, my personal take on the traffic stop itself, we also have the search of the car. So when you're arrested for something, they can only search the car if there is a likelihood that fruits of your arrest are going to be found in the car. So say a DUI, maybe we'll find alcohol in the car, right? If there's marijuana on you, maybe we'll find more marijuana in the car. They started searching the car before they had found the marijuana on him. So we have, if he'd come out the car, you didn't have a legal basis to search him. If it was for a suspended license, if you had run the tag, if you knew that, there was no legal basis to search him. There was no legal basis to search the car. The legality issues here in McNeil's case go far above and beyond his compliance.
I want to just briefly take a call from Daryl in St. Augustine. Daryl, we're wrapping up, so if you can just go briefly, please.
Yes. Good morning, and to your speaker, I'm sorry that your children have to go through what my children didn't have to go through. So I truly am sorry for you having to have that conversation with them. But your point about the three options that they have is go before the judge and plead guilty, which will cost you hundreds, if not $1,000 in court fees and fines and probation, etc. Or plead not guilty and go back to jail where you said you'll sit for a month, which Duval County Jail, I have helped a couple of people get out of there, and it is the single most dangerous place in all of Duval County. So your option is to plead not guilty and go back to the single most dangerous place in all of Duval County, or spend another $1,000 or several $1,000s for an attorney because the officer decided that you should have had your headlights on. Seems to be a very excessive and extreme thing for something as simple as headlights being off.
Thanks, Daryl. Appreciate your call. That said, there's obviously a lot of interest in continuing this conversation. So we should say if people are interested in attending the 9/0 Forward series, it does start tomorrow night. It's at the Jessie from 6 to 7:30. It's called Breaking the Code, Talking Through Encounters with Police. Do you want people to RSVP? Should they be going to your site for more information?
Yes, 904.org. You can hit our events, and all of our events are listed there.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on today. Thank you so much for continuing this conversation. We appreciate all your perspectives. Dr. Audrieanna Burgin, ReGina Newkirk, and Melinda Patterson. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, the women celebrating the women behind a woman's right to vote. Welcome back. The passage of the 19th Amendment continues to shape the lives and future of all Americans. Here to talk about the 105th anniversary of women's suffrage, we are joined by Linnell Philman, president of the local League of Women Voters, Jacksonville First Coast. Good morning, Linnell. Welcome back.
Good morning. Thank you for having us, Ann.
We're also joined by Rona DiCamillo, the group's vice president. Good morning, Rona.
Good morning.
And we're joined on the line by Jessica Lowe Minor. She's the president of the League of Women Voters of Florida. Good morning, Jessica.
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Happy to have you. I want to start, if I can, with you, Rona. I mean, it's easy, I think, sometimes for people to lose sight of the right to vote as it exists today. What is it that you think it is important for them to remember?
I think it's important to remember that every vote counts, that the goal of the League of Women Voters and other organizations is just to ensure that everybody gets out and understands that a lot of people have fought hard for the right to vote that we have. If you look at our Constitution, we've got a number of times where it's been amended to make sure that everyone has access to the ballot, and I think that's what's important to remember.
Jessica, can you sort of just remind us of the particulars of the effort? I mean, there were 70 years spent, trying to secure women's right to vote, leading up to the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920. Can you just remind us some of the struggles that the people, women and men, went through to try to make that a reality?
Absolutely. It was a multi-generational effort to ultimately secure the passage of the 19th Amendment and ensure that women were able to fully participate as citizens in the franchise. And, it really started in 1848. There was a convention on the rights of women in upstate New York. There were folks from all over the country who attended that, including, well-known abolitionist Frederick Douglass was there. So it was, a multi-gender and multiracial effort to ultimately secure women the right to vote. And it took 72 years. And, there were women who began the movement who passed away before they were able to see, the fruits of their labor being realized. And so we at the League of Women Voters were the only organization still in existence that was founded before the ratification of the 19th Amendment that worked specifically on issues related to women's suffrage and to voting. And of course, we currently have both men and women in the league. It's a multi-gender, multiracial effort to secure those rights and to make sure that everyone is prepared to build on the work that was done in the 1800s, the 1900s, and now into the 21st century.
And Linnell, that effort, I mean, there were divisions and there were some difficult, splits in that movement when it was happening, including, whether or not the right to vote would come first for Black men or whether Black women would be included in, that 19th Amendment. And of course, Native Americans weren't granted the right to vote for a number of years beyond that. And so while this effort is, praised for kind of what it brought and certainly set the stage for a lot of the feminist movement, it wasn't a perfect union, I guess.
No, it wasn't. And I would say even still today, it's not a perfect union. I think we should learn more from what happened in the fight for the 19th Amendment, and we should not be repeating that. But it seems that there's still such a mindset that equity and civil rights is like a pie, and if you and I both have the same amount of rights, somehow it takes something away from somebody else, and that actually is not the case. There's room for everybody to do the work, and we should really be, as Rona said, we should really be fighting for everyone who is eligible to register to vote to be registered to vote, and everyone who has access to the ballot box. We should actually be working together to defeat any barriers between voters and the ballot box. And unfortunately, that's not what we're seeing here in the state of Florida with our legislature.
I mean, there have been a number of issues that I think maybe, Jessica, that Florida voters have found dispiriting in terms of their efforts to advance their right to vote, whether it was, kind of the fair and square districts, the Fair Districts Amendment, or restoring rights for former felons. to be able to vote, those were efforts that were passed by citizens and ultimately kind of tweaked or undone at the legislative level. So they really haven't had the impact that voters hoped for. How do you, communicate to people in the community about those wins that ended up being maybe not victories?
Yeah, I think those are both good examples of cases where, Florida voters were quite clear that in the case of the redistricting amendments, their districts amendments that were passed in the 2010s, that they want to see districts that are compact, that are contiguous, that are not drawn with a partisan intent. I mean, literally language in those amendments says that districts cannot be drawn with the intent to favor or disfavor a political party or incumbent. And, obviously we're now seeing, threats of a redistricting cycle in the state of Florida that is very clearly being, thought with the intent to favor a specific political party. And so that's a real concern for Florida voters. It should be something that people are taking seriously, that people are calling their legislators and saying, hey, we do not want to see this. We want to see, fair districts implemented in the way that we as voters approved, our constitutional language several years back. The same is true with regard to restoring voting rights for folks who have completed their sentences and are returning to their communities. Those are folks who, committed a crime but have now atoned for that, have completed their sentence, and should be able to register to vote and participate easily and fairly. So we're not giving up on either of those battles. We think that the citizens have been very clear about what they expect, and our job as the league and as citizens of the state of Florida is to hold legislators accountable for what they are supposed to be doing.
Rona, the thing, what's happening right now in Texas, and as Jessica was kind of alluding to, could soon be happening in Florida, seems like kind of the most nakedly partisan effort in a long time to just say, we want additional members in the House. We're going to create additional seats to achieve that. How significant do you think it is that we're kind of at this moment?
I think it's very significant. I think it's particularly significant because today is actually the 60th anniversary of the passage of the Voting Rights Act. The Voting Rights Act was intended to prevent these types of things from happening, and we've seen the just consistent erosion of the voting rights ever since 2014 with the Shelby County decision by the Supreme Court. And so I think it's all just very tied together. And I think the sad part is that it makes people think that their vote doesn't matter at the end of the day. And as I said before, every vote matters. Every vote should be counted. Every person, regardless of who you're out there voting for, should be going to the polls and exercising that valued constitutional right to vote.
We have a message from Mike on Facebook saying Linnell is a community treasure. She does so much to make sure everyone votes. I did promise that we'd get to this persistent suffragist versus suffragette conundrum, Linnell. Can you kind of explain, that and why one is sort of preferred?
So I don't buy into the controversy. I will just say that. Yeah, the term suffragette actually came from a reporter or journalist back in Britain, right? Very early on, and it was used as a derogatory or demeaning term, like girls, doing this work or whatever. And suffrage is really about the right to vote, and so that's kind of where we're at, suffragist as opposed to suffragette. But I'll tell you what. Regardless of how anybody identifies or whatever language they want to use, if you are willing to show up and do the work to make sure that every eligible person has access to register to vote and that you help educate people, so they know when and where to vote and what they're voting on so they cast an informed vote, you can go by any name you want. We ask you join us in the work.
And I know that you have been gratified to see the work that our supervisor of elections here in Duval has done in terms of trying to create some additional transparency. And you were talking about that earlier, but we should just briefly note this event that is the celebration of the 19th Amendment. It's called Then and Now. It's the League of Women Voters Luncheon. It's at UNF on Sunday, August 17th at the University Center. Can people get information online somewhere?
Yes, on our website, lwvjaxfc.org. We're going to put it in the comment section of this a little later on. It's $35 a ticket. We do very good at trying to make sure that cost is not a prohibitive factor for people being able to join us. But we hope they'll come out, learn more about the league, meet our state president, and join us in the work.
All right. Well, Jessica Lowminer, Linnell Philman, Rhonda Camillo, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Up next, the true story of a covert condo hidden inside a shopping mall. We'll tell you about tonight's screening of Secret Mall Apartment.
Museum of Science and History's new exhibition, Mosh Archives, the story of us and you, steps you into a treasure trove of memories, now through August 31st. Tickets and information at themosh.org. The Florida Theater presents The Psychology of Cults, a live event exploring how cults form, why people join, and what it takes to leave. Wednesday, October 8th at 8 p.m. Information at floridatheater.com. Congaree & Pen, dedicated to agriculture and culinary endeavors, offering field-to-fork dining and outdoor experiences on over 300 acres. Sip, dine, explore. Information at congareeandpen.com.
Listen to Anthology on 89.9 HD3 and let the music unlock your memories. All your favorite music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s are always on 89.9 HD3 Anthology.
Summers are getting hotter every year, and when it comes to adapting to a warmer planet, in the United States, it's cities that are taking the lead. In Atlanta, they've passed a first-in-the-nation cool roof ordinance.
It's rapid, it's cost-effective, and it just seems like an absolute no-brainer.
I'm Meghna Chakrabarty. Cool roofs, what they are and how they work. That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11, here on WJCT News 89.9.
The trade deal between the U.S. and Europe imposes a 15% tariff on imported pharmaceuticals from the EU. 43% of brand-name drugs in the U.S. contain active ingredients manufactured in Europe. The White House also announced a new 25% tariff on drug imports from India. How will new tariffs affect consumers and drug prices? That's next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. A documentary screening tonight tells the true story of a secret apartment in a shopping mall. It's called, appropriately enough, Secret Mall Apartment. And here to tell us about it is WJCT station manager and all-around film fan, David Luckin. Good morning, David.
Good morning, Ann. This is such a fun film. I watched this a few weeks ago, and the way we found out about it, this is the best part. We asked people to make suggestions. We have a little survey, and an audience member suggested this film, and then we latched onto it. It is so good. It's based on a true story, which is so bananas. This is a documentary that came out last year, but this is going to be a special screening of it here, not just because, WJCT films are a fun place to see and a cool venue, but also because there's going to be a Q&A and also this little featurette that's going to be shown. Tell us about that. Right. We'll show the whole film, and it will be introduced by Ellen Altman, the executive producer. And then we've got a nice little 8-minute featurette we're going to show after the movie about the premiere of this film in the mall where they lived. They rescinded his lifetime ban lifetime, obviously. 17 years later, they rescinded that and said, come on in. This
is the guy that kind of spearheaded the
exactly,
secret
along
mall.
with 7 other art students in Providence. And then the mall totally embraced them, let him set up a version of that apartment where everyone came in and did selfies. And the mall totally turned around.
And it was a turnaround because they were arrested, right, when they were found out after.
Well, they were just kicked out and banned.
Okay, kicked out and banned.
But they were there for 4 years, and they didn't live there full time, but it was a nice place to hang out. They could go downstairs in the food court, have lunch, and then go to their apartment.
And they also rigged it up with electricity. I mean, they had video games,
they
TV,
built a
they
wall,
couch.
they put up a door.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's really fun. And we've sold a lot of tickets, but there's still time. Visit us online at wjct.org/film, or just walk up.
we were happy to see you.
Yeah, it's cheap. It's
Either
$5.
way,
There's
$5.
drinks. There's popcorn. One thing that's funny about this film, I mean, it is a kind of a spoof, but it wasn't really a prank. I mean, these were, as you say, they were Rhode Island School of Design art students. They had a message that they were trying to.
They were serious. They didn't like gentrification, and they thought, well, if you're going to invade our neighborhood, then we'll live in your place.
Right.
And they were watching. The one gentleman was watching it being built, and he wondered what this little nook up top was going to be used for. So he ended up zeroing in on that. After it was built, he remembered where that space was, and found it and built an apartment.
It is such an interesting story, and it has been really well received critically. I think the Daily Beast called it a dazzling kiss-off to gentrification.
Yeah.
And Vulture called it one of the best movies of 2025. So a great opportunity to see it here. And as you say, the executive producer will be here for a Q&A afterwards. I just want to shift gears a little bit and talk about our pledge drive
And our
because,
rescission.
well, that and
Yeah.
and kind of just our fundraising efforts. I'm curious, we did a couple days on air, but the fundraising effort continues
It does.
online and kind of, we're doing occasional reminders. How's it going so far?
We did really well. We did beyond our expectations, and people are still calling, so we're still taking phone calls at 353-9528. It's not too late. Usually we put up a thank you spot by now, but because people are still calling us, we really want to keep
We're
keep
going to
it
hold out. We're not
going.
going to thank them just yet.
No, not yet. So I'm taking the time now to thank everyone who's participated. It was wonderful. We had a match, and all the community called in, and they're still calling. So please, if you procrastinated, if you meant to do it, you can still do it.
These are different times. And do you get a sense that the community is responding to that fact? Are they kind of
I
aware
do.
that we
I
really
do.
are making a different sort of ask?
Because I've done pledge drives here for about 25 years, this was pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
The response was really good. And
Yeah.
it's still happening. So like I say, if you love this program and you didn't offer any membership fees for it, now's your time.
Yeah. And not just calling that number, but they can also go to the wjct.org/sustain, which
Absolutely.
is,
That's the easiest way to go. And if you're new to the station, if you haven't been a sustainer, that'll give you all the information to become one.
yeah. I mean, it also allows people to make that ongoing commitment, which is
Yes.
important, as we know,
$10.
because these rescission decisions are ongoing. It is not something that is going to bounce back next year or the year
No,
after.
and
We
we
really are
lost-
going to have to change our approach.
We lost nearly $2 million. So that's a lot to make up. That's
Yeah.
basically what we pay for programming for radio and TV. So we're making plans and changes and lots of meetings and trying to figure out how we get past this.
Yeah.
But again, thank you to all of our listeners. You folks out there are the best.
Well, any way to support the station, and one way is just to kind of be a part of the stuff that we do. So the event tonight is in WJCT Studios. It is called Secret Mall Apartment. It is going to be a ton of fun. It's $5, and it is the first public screening of this featurette, this little element that shows kind of the reaction and the reception of the mall itself.
Actually, yes, we will premiere that. No one else has seen that around the world, so
Excellent.
that's fun. And come a little early. Parking's a little funny right now. We're having a little
It is a little
construction
funny,
going
yeah.
on. So I'll just say be prepared to drive in circles, but you're going to love the movie.
All right. Well, David Luckin, thanks so much for being here.
My
Appreciate it.
pleasure.
All right. And that's our program. Thank you for listening. If you have comments or suggestions, you can send it to firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. And if you missed anything, you can catch our rebroadcast tonight at 8 o'clock, or you can also find our entire archive at wjct.org or wherever you get your podcasts. The executive producer of First Coast Connect is my guest, David Luckin. Our show is produced by Stacey Bennett and directed by Brady Corum. Our interns are Lo Oliveri and Camille Crawford. And our theme music is performed by Club de Belugas. Please join us tomorrow. We're going to be talking with city officials about how they hope their new State of Jax initiative is going to help tell the city's story through data. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or BaptistJax.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. Museum of Science and History's new exhibition, Mosh Archives, The Story of Us and You, steps you into a treasure trove of memories now through August 31st. Tickets and information at themosh.org.
This is WJCT News